It's time for the Property Podcast, where every week tens of thousands of property investors, new and experienced, join together to get news, knowledge and laughs at our expense. With me, Rob Bence.
And me, Rob Dix. Join us every Thursday morning for your weekly dose of property ideas and motivation. Then head over to our website at thepropertypodcast.com to keep the conversation going. Now though, let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the Property Podcast. I'm Rob B. With me is Rob D. Hello everyone, and hello Rob.
Hello Rob. Now just lie down on the couch, close your eyes and join me on this therapy session that we're going to have today. The title says it all really, how Rob B lost £40,000 on one deal. So it's going to be part therapy, part salutary tale. You'll get all the details. You'll get a tasty resource as well, as always. But before that, you'll get an opportunity to make your feelings known directly to our Prime Minister. That's
right. Our news story of the week, which you can find in the show notes. This week's show notes, if you'd like to have a look, are thepropertyhub.net/deal lesson. That's deal lesson. Go there and you'll find this week's news story. But it's the opportunity to live next to David Cameron. No, George Osborne's not moved out. It's in Buckinghamshire. It's a lovely, lovely home. Beautiful, in fact. It's on for $2.25 million. But the selling point, if you want to call it that, is the opportunity to live next door to David Cameron. Now, David Cameron might not have as many fans as he used to in the property world, thanks to his buddy George Osborne. Now, if that's the case and you are one of those people, maybe you can use this opportunity to move in, pop around with some flowers to say hello. Or he should be doing that, really, shouldn't he? Because you're the new neighbour. He might pop around with some flowers and some milk and whatever you're meant to do with neighbours these days. And while you're there, you can pop into conversation. How much money has cost you in the budget? And please, can he change it? And if he's a good neighbour, he should. So for the sake of all of us, if we'll post this link in the show notes, can one of you buy it and reverse the changes, if possible?
Or just lob some stuff over the fence to make yourself feel better into his garden.
Grow really large conifers on the borders.
Yeah, or some kind of massive extension that's going to block his light. I don't know. That'd be the most petty thing in the world, wouldn't it? If you just like, you've cost me a lot of money, so I'm just going to try and block out some of your sunlight at the best time of the day. No, that would be a terrible form of revenge. But if you do want to get revenge or make your feelings known, go over to the show notes. You'll find that news story along with some of the more useful things that we're sharing today as well. Okay, Rob, we can't procrastinate any longer. Shall we get into it?
We should. And while this is a therapy session of sorts, there will be good takeaways and good lessons, so you don't have to make the mistakes I've made. And yes, 10 plus years into property, I'm still making them. But here we go. Rob, let's do it.
Okay, so some of the background to this will be found in Rob's progress journal on the Property Hub. That will be linked in the show notes as well, propertyhub.net/deal lesson. But Rob, for anyone who hasn't read that, and to give us a little bit more as well, fill us in. What was the background to this deal? Because you liked it so much in the first place. This wasn't just one that you were trying to get for yourself. You were doing it on behalf of clients as well. As we'll hear later, it worked out quite well. Didn't work out so well for you. What was the background? What attracted you to this investment in the first place?
Okay, so this investment was from a national developer. I won't mention their names because I'm obviously not a big fan of them right now. It was a housing development in St Helens. Now, St Helens isn't on my top 10 tourist list of places to visit in the UK. It's a solid town. I'm not saying it's rubbish. I'm not saying it's great. It's just, solid residential area. The deal itself was more than solid. The deal itself was fantastic. Basically, the developer had their half-year figures coming, and they wanted these completed in time for those half-year figures. And they'd sold the rest on site, and they had a small number of houses left that they wanted to shift. They shifted the others at the full price that they wanted, and I could see that on land registry, so that gave me comfort. The last few they had on site, they needed to sell, but they'd moved their sales office off site as well. So they'd moved the sales office off. They were coming up to half-year figures, so the timing was right to strike a deal, and we got a cracking deal on it. It was worth 160. And the comps, the comparables and the sold prices of the other units on the development reflected that as well. It was a 3-bed semi-detached, all really nice looking, nice kitchen, decent sized garden, perfect for the rental market. But also, it was an opportunity to flip because we were getting it for 120. Yes, that's right, 160 to 120. That is a massive discount, I know. And you can see why I was pretty keen to do it. So that's really the why the deal was on the table, and you can see why I got it with the level of discount. But why I liked it was there was clearly a rental market there, but it was going to really move me forward on my annual goal towards the figure I've been trying to attain this year. So if you're following the progress journals, this year I want to add 500,000 to my portfolio and buy a family home, which will be pretty expensive, the family home part. The two things are separate, but it's just a property expense I've got to swallow as well. So this would have, taken a big chunk out of that, 160 its value out of the 500. So well on my way. I've done a couple of deals this year already, so that this deal would have really helped. So yeah, that's why I liked it, Rob. It was 160, potential to get it for 120, few costs involved, but yeah, I don't think it's hard to see why I was so attracted to it. And as you say, because we bought a few of them, we got that deal, and other people took advantage of it.
Okay, well, let's dig into this a little, because there's some really interesting stuff in there. I think it's really interesting that you could actually see on the land registry the ones that they'd already sold, because one of the things that I'd be nervous of with buying a new build is it can be quite hard to value them. But if you can see the exact same property already on the land reg and you're picking it up at the lower price, that gives you complete confidence, which is amazing. How did these end up coming to you? Because this is something that's not directly related to the story, but you've said on the podcast in the past, look out for when developers have got their half-year figures coming up, because there might be opportunities. This is a real example of when that exact thing has happened. So as RMP, how did you become aware of this opportunity?
Well, basically, I've got a team of sources who are constantly just bombarding, is probably the true word, rather than liaising. They're bombarding developers non-stop to say, when you need us, we're here. And that's really what they do. They look for repossession deals as well, but the national developers, they'll just say, listen, we're here if you need us. Now, end of year or half year is a fantastic opportunity, and you as an individual can take advantage of that as well. Yes, we reserved, I should say, a few of them, and individually we all bought one, the clients of RMP. But even as an individual, if you time it right, there's still deals to be done at half year and end of year if that development is completing around then. So that's one to be aware of. But it was the perfect storm, really, because not only did we have that, but it was the fact that they'd moved off site as well. Again, look for that. Developers who've moved off site and they're still trying to sell them through local agents, they'll definitely just want to clear the books and do a deal. So yes, we've done it at RMP, and yes, we'll probably would have got a stronger deal than individuals because we reserved a few of them. But the fact is, you can do this as an individual if you put the time in. That's the big thing. We've talked about this several times, and we're not trying to put myself out of business. But if you do want to put the hours in, the time and the networking in, you can find deals yourself. It's just that the people who work with RMP either don't want to put the time in, or can't put the time in. They just physically haven't got it. But if you want to do it yourself, you can.
Okay, so that's the background. I can see why this was so appealing. It seems like a really great deal. So what happened?
Well, I broke my own rules. So, we're on the podcast and we're saying you should do this, you should do that. I just didn't prioritise the investment. The business, RMP and Yellow, they were taking more of my time, and obviously the podcast and the hub and everything else. And I've just put my deal to the back because I thought, well, I'm working with the developer. They're not going to mess me around. I'm wrong. So that was mistake number one, assuming that I'd get special treatment. Mistake number two was I used the wrong broker. Well, I used the wrong mortgage company. The broker I use is different from the brokers I use at RMP. Not because I don't rate them. I just thought my logic was, well, just keep things separate. Your business and your own personal investments keep separate. So I found a broker who doesn't specialise in buy-to-let. Yes, I know you probably a few are screaming at your iPhones now or your car radio, because that's what I tell you to do. Just a broker who does a bit of everything, and he put me into a product that I really shouldn't have gone with, because the lender, who I'm happy to name and shame because they really cost me the deal, Paragon are horrifically slow. I was slow, but Paragon, wow, I don't know how they get deals done, because they were so slow, it was unbelievable. And if they're listening to this, I'll never get lending off them again, but that's fine because I won't use you again. So there's a word of warning for anyone working with Paragon. If you're in a rush, you're in trouble. So I'd say that was a big mistake.
And that's a really important point, I think, because we talk about brokers a lot and the importance of a right broker. And Rob, I cannot believe you didn't use a buy-to-let specialist. What did you expect? But this is a really important one because you think that, oh, I don't need to use a broker because I can figure out the best rate myself. I'll go in, I'll look at all the different fees, work out which is the best, and I can just go direct, save myself a bit of money. But that's not the only factor. Speed is so important. And we heard another story from someone at the summit who had the same experience. They're having real trouble because a lender was being so slow. And a good broker will have insight into this stuff because there are some lenders who are always renowned for being slow. Paragon's one of them. But there are others where they'll just suddenly get really, really busy and things will grind to a halt for a couple of months. These things kind of go in peaks and troughs, it seems. And if a broker is dealing with them all the time, they're going to know which lenders are backlogged at the moment. So if you do have something which is important to do fast, they won't place you with that lender. You as an individual will have no idea. There's no way for you to know that. So it really is. We do bang on about it, but it is so important to have a broker who's clued in because we're finding out today what happens if that isn't the case.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact, RMP employs a team dedicated to getting people through the transactions as promptly and as efficiently as possible, where possible. And I was going slow. And then I've used a broker that we don't recommend, that isn't a specialist. Then I've gone with a mortgage provider that is notoriously slow. You can see what's happening here. And yes, it dragged. So while the investors of RMP exchanged and completed, I still wasn't ready. And then their half-year day came. And I was on with my solicitor and my broker to Paragon to get them to release the funds. The mortgage had been accepted. The valuation had been done. Every box was ticked. But Paragon just needed a bit of time to release the cash. This was Thursday. The next day, tomorrow, was Friday, the day I had to complete the half-year end. Couldn't fine, I know. Paragon said, well, that's nice, but we're not going to release the money till Tuesday.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Deep breaths. Okay, so they're not going to release the money to Tuesday, even though they've approved the mortgage. They're happy to release it, but we're going to take the best part of a week to do it. That's not the norm, unfortunately. Friday comes and goes. They tell me on Monday morning they've pulled the deal. I'm on the phone via my solicitor and trying to work the relationship I've got. Semi-begging at this point because it is a great deal, as I've explained earlier. Everyone else has gone through. What difference does one make? What difference does 24 hours make? But they pulled the deal and they stuck to it. So what was my cost? Well, it says £40,000 is the title. And in a way, you go, well, Rob, you've not really lost 40,000, but I have. It's the opportunity cost. That potentially was a great addition to my portfolio. 40,000 in potential extra equity there, the 120 to the 160. As Rob's pointed out, the comparables, having them there on the land registry just gives you massive confidence. So that potential 40 on paper would have been an amazing addition to the portfolio, gone. So although I've not had to pay out 40, I've not got that 40 that I would have got. So the opportunity cost is absolutely £40,000. There's no doubt about it, which is painful. The actual real cost, what I've paid out and then lost, well, there was solicitors' fees I had to settle. I paid for the valuation. The broker's fees, I had to sort him out with a bit. So it's probably cost me, £1,000, maybe just over, in real costs as well. But as I say, the bigger cost was not getting a deal. The £1,000 is painful, and I obviously didn't want to lose that. But far more painful was not getting a deal at all.
And presumably there's a time cost as well, because you had a certain goal for the year, and for a period of, let's say, a couple of months, you mentally had a certain amount of cash tied up in this deal that you thought was going to be your deposit for this. You'd been putting your time into making this deal happen when you could have been looking at other things. So this potentially is a setback in terms of reaching your annual goal as well. So there's the time cost, the opportunity cost, and the right now financial cost.
Wait there, is this meant to be therapy or rubbing it in?
Okay, yeah, so we are rubbing it in for you, but this is for the greater good, because it means lots of other people are going to avoid the same mistake. So really, it's a chance for you to salvage something. We're not going to get your £40,000 back, but you do get to feel good about yourself and feel like something good has come from this experience.
Oh, good twist, good twist.
Okay, so one final bit of rubbing it in, Rob. What has happened to those that did complete?
No, I'm not doing this. You know what happened. you can tell everyone.
You unplug your headphones for a second and I'll tell people what happened. So I've actually been inside these properties because they are being managed by Yellow Lettings, the ones that did complete. I happened to be up there with one of our reps doing some training just as these were completing. They're very nice properties, ready to rent. And indeed, the ones that Yellow got, we've got absolutely deluged with inquiries, loads and loads of applications for these the minute they went online, and they were let within a week. So you can't even console yourself and be like, oh, well, maybe I dodged a bullet. No, really good properties, Rob, sorry.
Yeah, and they let it the full amount as well. You know, there was no negotiation because there was so many people lined up for them, which made me feel even better. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, I'm obviously happy for our clients who've done well on this deal. And then, just to rub salt into the wounds, they sold that property to a cash buyer who completed in 48 hours. So that same week I lost the deal, someone else completed on it.
So on next week's episode, how Rob D made £40,000 on one deal. No, I didn't really pick it up while I was up there, but wish I had done now.
Yeah, same here. But never mind. So I think it's important to look at the lessons. Lesson number one, I'd say, is be prepared for any deal. Deals can go slow and then really speed up. They're unpredictable, especially, you know, repossessions. This wasn't a repossession, but here's just general lessons for anybody. Be prepared for deals to move at different paces. At one minute, it feels like everything's ground to a halt, and the next minute, it's like, you've got to complete. So be prepared. Make sure you're in a position to complete or exchange whatever point you're up to when asked. So make sure all your documents are ready, everything's signed that needs signing. Let people know when you're going away on holidays. Just get ready for the deal, because if it is a good deal, make sure you're ready, because the deal won't wait around for you, as we've heard, even if you've got a relationship. So that's the first thing, is make sure you're prepared. The next thing is work with a specialist, a broker who's a specialist. Yes, I talk about it. Yes, I recommend it. Yes, all the clients I work with do. But for some reason, I broke that rule. I won't do it again, but that's a big lesson for me to learn. Rob, is there anything else you've picked out of this that you'd add as potential lessons to be learned?
All in all, I think what's really interesting about this, I think this is probably the most painful episode we've done for you out of all 126, but I think this is one of the most valuable episodes we've done in the last couple of years, because it really solidifies all the lessons. It's not like there's anything new in here, but this is a real example of so many of the different things that we've talked about. Like the way the opportunity came about in the first place is something we've talked about. The importance of using a specialist is something we've talked about. There's loads in there. It just goes to show why it's important, because like you say, you've been doing it for a decade. And if you break any of these rules, things can still go wrong. You don't develop magic powers that make you bulletproof. You're going to get better as you go along. Of course you are, and you're going to avoid lots of mistakes. But if you do relax and, you know, put your clients first as you did, then it is possible for these things to still happen. So I think the main lesson, as far as I can tell, is don't break your own rules. Be on your game at all times. And especially if it's a good opportunity, because they don't hang around. I think that sort of seller's remorse is a real thing. Maybe this is a bit different, but if you're buying off a private individual, when they agree the deal with you, they might be really relieved that they've managed to sell. But then as a couple of months go by and everything goes through, they might start seeing headlines about prices going up in the area. They might sort of talk to their mate and be like, well, you should have charged more. You just never know. The longer things go on for, the more opportunity there is for things to go wrong. So while these things do inevitably take time, you really want to get it locked down as quickly as you can and keep that momentum going, because you just never know. Time is the killer of deals. It is. And I think it's also important to point out that, you know, we talk about a lot of the wins you can get from property, and we're just not trying to neg people out here. You know, we've had many more successes than we've had failures. You know, we've both made mistakes in property. You know, I've made more than I wish to admit to. I'm not doing this every week, but I've made far more better decisions than I've made worse. But it's important to know that, you know, it's a journey. It's not just all one way, and it's not all amazing. There is more good than bad, but you just have to take your lessons as they come, learn from them, and not make them again. So I think it's a good lesson as well, a reminder that property can be challenging. But just remember why you're doing it in the first place. When it does get tough, think of the bigger picture. That's why goals are important as well, because, you know, why you're doing this. You could get, you know, if you were new to property and this was your first deal, you could go, well, I'm not doing that again. That would be a tragic thing to happen to anybody, because if you think that way, then that goal, that motivation that you originally set out won't happen. And I think actually if you set that goal, then when the bumps do come about, which they inevitably will, you can refocus on why you're doing it in the first place, right?
and then put a plan together to get back on track.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why progress journals in the Property Hub are really valuable as well. And since we launched those, it's great to see that so many people have been starting a journal of their own. Because as well as having a kind of the accountability there of putting out there what you're going to do and then being able to track as you do it, it also allows you to get advice at relevant points as well. Because things do happen. It's very rare that something will go completely smoothly. In my progress journal on there, I'm talking about a couple of transactions that have now completed, but along the way, both of them looked like they might not because something unexpected happened. And as it happened, I was lucky enough to be working with the right people and get the right advice to get around those. But if you were not in that position, you might be able to ask about it on the hub and get the response you need from someone else. So get over to those progress journals, check out Rob's and mine, check out everyone else's as well, and consider starting one of your own. Whatever position you're in, it's going to be beneficial to you. And of course, like everything else on the hub, it's completely free. You'll find the link in the show notes at thepropertyhub.net/deal lesson. Okay, quite enough of that, Rob. Let's let you off the hook now and move on to happier topics, shall we? Let's have a resource of the week.
Exactly. And that deal was about how it's cost me money, but thanks to Tim Nolan, who attended the Property Hub Summit recently, he's going to save me money, Rob. So I'm going to start winning it back because Tim has unearthed an absolutely brilliant resource. So thank you, Tim. And it's called Revolut. It'll be in the show notes and it'll be on the Property Hub website as well if you want to check it out. But it's revolut.com. The concept behind this is really interesting. It's basically currency transfer. So if you want dollars, euros, whatever else it may be, and you want to switch, normally you go to the bank. If you go to a currency broker, you'll probably do a bit better, like Travelex or MoneyCorp, someone like that. But this service allows you to transfer money or get holiday money at interbank rates, which is basically the lowest level you can get rate-wise. So the banks trade at interbank rates, put a margin on top, and then sell it to you. There is no margin. It's interbank rates. It's unbelievable. It's no cost at the moment. They're committing to being no cost for at least the next 12 months. It seems to be backed by all the right people. This is not necessarily an endorsement for its financial background, but it seems to be backed by all the right people. It looks like an incredible service. It's one definitely to check out. Rob, I'm sure you're going to be all over this with your travelling.
Yeah, it really does look amazing. There's something similar, which I can't remember the name of right now, helpfully, which my wife got recently, which looks like a similar concept, but not as good as this. This really does look great. So I will absolutely be digging into this.
So thank you, Tim, for that. And also thank you to Wes Village. And Wes has been kind enough to leave us a review, a 5-star one at that. And it says, truly excellent resource, thank you. The Robs are excellent presenters and work well with each other. The driest of property subjects are dealt with in a light-hearted manner. Short but sweet. Thanks, Wes. Appreciate you taking the time to get on iTunes and leave us a review. As Rob mentioned last week, the Property Podcast was absent from iTunes for a fair old while, but it's back. And if you'd like to leave us a review, we would appreciate it. Nearly 300 now, unreal. So thank you so much to everybody who's left us a review.
Yeah, thank you. And if you haven't yet, please do tip us over that 300. That'll be very exciting because when we're not working on property, we're always checking our stats and getting excited about reviews. So next week, another really important topic, 5 negotiation techniques you can use to get a better deal. So this week, Rob found a great deal and the problem set in later. But for a lot of people, actually, their biggest pain point is finding the opportunity in the first place. And when you do find something that's interesting to you, you want to make sure that you can get it at the best price. That is how you build that equity in from the start, improve your cash flow. Buying at the best price is the absolute key to everything. And so a really important topic next week, we're going to be teaching you some tips to help you do that.
We certainly will. So we're looking forward to that one. But until next week, thank you for joining us. We've got some interesting news next week as well, so to tell you about something that's coming up. So make sure you join us for that announcement. But if nothing else, those 5 techniques should save you a ton of cash. So until then, have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Property Podcast. Make sure you join our mailing list at thepropertypodcast.com.
And remember, we love 5-star reviews. Rob even loves them more than air miles.